Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. Today, we're thrilled to be talking to the cast of the upcoming film, Sarah's Oil. We're going to kick things off by introducing you to the African members on the call today, starting with Michael in Washington, D.C., Nick Hamilton in Los Angeles, Nancy Green in L.A., Lance Ringo, a new member, in Chicago, Derek Dunn, Reviews and Dunn, in Washington, D.C., Jari in New Jersey, Dana Abercrombie in New York, New York, Jill Monroe, also in L.A., and finally, Karan Leroy Kelly in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm going to let you guys do what you do so well, and guess what? I'll see you on the other side.
My name's Sarah Rector. The state gave me 160 acres on account of my ancestors, and there's oil on it.
Well, how do you know that?
God gave me the ears to hear it. Do you hear it, Blue? There's oceans down there.
Nobody but you, Lord.
I got oil on my land, and I'm looking for a partner to help me drill it out.
Bertrand Byron Smith, at your service. I look for oil, and I drill for it.
I was thinking 50-50.
We should have our lawyers meet. That's my lawyer, the Texas handshake. There ain't nothing more binding.
We're in Oklahoma.
It goes double for Okies. Here we go.
Nobody but you, Lord. Nobody but.
What's the damage? Well, this might be the end of the road.
Dude, give them so easy.
What's your guess? Is he gonna do the right thing?
We shook hands.
You may have to speak to him.
I don't know what to say.
God'll give you the words.
We need money out of you. But how are we gonna get him?
Hi, I'm Sarah, Bert's business partner. Has Bert properly presented our proposition, ma'am?
You said y'all need to put in there $1,000.
We need 2,000, and we need it today. It's a partnership.
Got some real nice mud here. Hoping you might test it first.
I've never seen anything like it. That field you're sitting on could be the richest in all Oklahoma.
I'll give you $20 an acre.
I ain't selling.
You want a war?
You told me things about my soul. Ain't nobody ever done that for me. Ain't nobody ever cared.
We're dealing with some mighty devious folks over there.
Then we need to fight for what's ours.
Is that why I see dynamite?
That's my oil!
No, it ain't!
I would not do that if I was you. You took the liberty of wiring up your wells just in case you wanted to do something foolish.
It's funny. When the land had only weeds and lizards, it was all mine. But when people found out there was oil on it, they started thinking it's theirs. All I'm asking is to keep what's mine.
Her name is Sarah Rector, and you're going to be hearing a lot about her.
You know, I've grown kind of fond of the kid. That's called a knight.
It can hop over your pieces.
That's right. Look at you. You're learning.
Just want to make sure before I take your queen.
Really?
Nobody but you.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Nick Hamilton, nightcastmedia.com. I wanted to ask, my question is for everyone here on the panel. Such an epic story, not just in Black history, but American history. What are some of the defining moments that captivated you about this story, where it resonates with you and you want it to resonate with the audiences?
Well, I'll jump in first. Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Oh, this is really exciting. It's beautiful to look at this screen and see the faces looking back. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'll say initially, the moment for me was after reading the script, because it was through the script that I know is true for both of us, where we even realized that Sarah Rector and her story existed. And so the fact that this was a hidden, lost piece of American history, I like the way you put that, was the kind of thing that immediately was striking. And it was like, oh, wow, like these are the things, I don't know, these are the things that I dream about being a part of, getting to unveil to the world and lend my talents and abilities to bringing stories like this to life. It doesn't really get much better than that, to me, in my opinion.
I agree. What about you, Naya?
I think that just to be a part of this untold story about the first Black girl in America to become a millionaire is amazing. And I want audiences to feel like they can do anything and just to feel empowered in the end.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and congratulations to you all.
Thank you, Nick.
Hi, I'm Michael Solo from Washington, D.C. How are you?
Great. How are you?
How are you?
Great. First, congratulations with this film. Me and my wife watched this last night, and I was very blessed to see come out of it and just feeling empowered. But more importantly, this film dived into multiple themes such as legacy, faith, and survival. My questions to the Greens is that as both as performers and parents, how did the ideas of this film shape your connection to Sarah and her struggle?
Wow, that's a great question. I also ditto everything that Kenric said. This is like a dream being on this, being on this with y'all. But yeah, when we first saw it, we were immediately moved by this deliberately hidden piece of Black American history, and being faith forward, just as the Rectors are. Sarah Rector was wildly faithful and ended up shepherding her own family, the very parents that instilled that faith in her. She ended up taking them to the next level, and that really inspired us as parents. We were able to come to the set as a unit, and it ended up being such a blessing because we already had this connection. We already had this, chemistry, if you will, and we were able to establish a family dynamic really quickly. A lot of that has to do with how brilliant Naya is, and how amazing she is, and open and engaging and dynamic, and Adion as well, who played Junior, of course. But we were a fast family, and we were inspired every step of the way, because we could see how these parents answered the call of God. I've said this quite a few times, answered the call of God, even though it was a high price. And we, of course, want to do that in our own lives as parents. So it was a joy to bring this story to the light for so many reasons, that being one of them.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say again, this film definitely was a blessing, and I hope viewers, come out of this really empowered and everything. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Hi, Lance Ringgold from Chicago, Illinois. My question is for everyone. First and foremost, again, this movie is amazing. It put me on the story of Sarah Rector, and I watched this film last night. It's a story that I can show my kids. I have 4 girls, and it made me think about, what do you want audiences to take away from this amazing story?
Gosh, there's a number of things that I would like to take away. But before I kind of express my desire with that, I will say that I'm very much of the mind as an artist that you put whatever you have into something and put it out there, and then everyone is going to see whatever they see through their own perspectives and through their own lens of whatever their lives, kind of consist of. And so I have my desires of what I'd like to see people take away, but I also I understand that it's like people are gonna digest it however they need to, whatever it means, whatever it might mean to them. At the core of the story is faith, and so we watch Sarah get grounded in her faith, even with the threat of death, and continue to push forward. And so if there's something that I would like audiences to take away, is to understand the power of faith and action in your life, and what can be accomplished even though things seem unsurmountable, impossible, unimaginable, but with your faith in the Lord, anything is possible. Anything can be accomplished, beyond what you could ask, think, or imagine.
What about you, Naya?
I think that, like Mr. Kenric said, that people are going to interpret this movie how the best way that their mind makes sense of it, how their mind gets a hold of it. Some people may not like this story, some people may love this story a whole lot. And I think it's a story that everyone should listen to. And Sarah Rector was a girl who loved her family and her friends very, very much so, which is why she would do anything to protect them. And just being able to portray her is a very big honor for me because, yes, she is a very famous person, but I could also connect to her because she's also a kind person and a brave person and loves her family and friends so, so much.
All right, thank you, and again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Karan Lenoir Kelly with Karanism.com and Love Music Pleasure. And Naya, I just have to tell you, I was so impressed by your performance. For you to be so young and to bring so much heart to this role, so much clarity to this role, I want to say, I know you don't need my pride, but I'm proud of you. I'd like to know from you all, what about Sarah inspired you and what parts of Sarah do you see in yourself?
I see her braveness and also your pride is very important to me. Thank you, thank you. And I see Sarah's braveness in myself, mostly because she'll protect anyone she loves and also the hardships that she went through. When she didn't know what to do, she always turned to, yes, her family and friends, but also her faith in God, and just feeling that connection, just to have someone to lean on, even when it's hard, is what I think most connected me to Sarah Rector.
I think, I think we were connected to her and inspired by her in a way that hopefully everyone is. As you so eloquently said, I was about to call you baby. I'm sorry. As you eloquently said, Kenric, faith in action, right? Being able to see that play out, seeing that exemplified, that's no small thing. That's hard. And it was one of the hardest decisions that she made in her life, as well as her parents, the entire Rector family. They had to make a lot of hard decisions that we don't even touch that kind of challenge in this day and age, right? And so being able to see it again, like that faith in action at any cost, being able to see someone look at the face of resistance and press against it and say, no, no, I know what God told me. I know where I'm being led and I am going to stick to it no matter what. I think that, my goodness, if each and every one of us can get a hold of that, you know what I'm saying, as Black people and as young people and as all people, then we're just gonna change the world, like she did.
Thank you so much. And Naya, you are just as brave and as bold as Sarah. You are beautiful. Thank you for this brilliant performance.
Agreed.
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 Second and third that.
Yes.
Hi, Jeree with the TV Cave podcast. I just want to say, Miss Naya, there's a line in the film that everyone's going to know Sarah's name, and I think everyone will know your name after they see this film. So congratulations. My question is for the Greens. Now I've know that Kenric, sometimes I've see you pop up on Star Trek and The Walking Dead and recently Boston Blue. But correct me if I'm wrong, is this you guys' first time actually playing a married couple together? Can you guys talk about that experience?
Oh man, yeah, thank you for that question.
Yes.
It's yeah, this is this movie, Sarah's Oil, it checks a lot of boxes for us.
Yeah.
And we've been married, it'll be 15 years in December.
Mhm.
And this was one of those things that we oh, thank you.
Thank you.
This was one of those things that we sat down within the first year of marriage, both being actors and being like, all right, what do we want to pray for? What would we like to do? What do we want to see over the course of our lives? And doing a movie together was one of those things on the list. I don't even know if we specified married in the movie. We just wanted to be in a movie together and tell a story in that way. And so the fact that we get to play husband and wife in a story that's so meaningful to really to us as Black folks, but also to people at large, because again, this is American history. This is what happened. Everybody can get value from coming in contact with this story. So to be able to play husband and wife on screen in such a meaningful story is
it's
the best. Yeah, it's the best.
Especially one that brings glory to Christ, and that's also a dream of ours. And we were able to we speak the same language as actors, right? And so we were able to build our characters together, build these people. We were playing these people that are real. We've also never done that together, and so having to be like, okay, what did you learn? Okay, what did you learn today? Okay, let's put this together. Let's like strategize this thing together. It was really phenomenal, and there was such a sense of peace and security on set, being able to look across and see him. It made set feel like home, more so than ever before, right? And again, we were able to then take that and give that to Naya and give that to Adion, and as much as we see Sarah in Naya, because very much so she is that brave, bright, courageous girl who carried this film on her shoulders. We really hope that we can take a little bit of the Rectors, into us as well, and walk that out also.
Yes.
Great, that's beautiful. Thank you.
You.
Jill Monroe, KBLA Talk 1580. One of the things that struck me is that when we see stories about Black wealth, so often they're wrapped in tragedy or hustle. And this was about stewardship and faith. So what did all of you learn about faith throughout this story and taking this journey with the Rectors and Sarah especially?
I think faith in this journey was very important because faith is what carried Sarah Rector and Sarah Rector's family through the hardest of times. When her friends had been threatened and killed for their land, and she was also being threatened and on the verge of being killed. And through those dark times where she didn't know who to lean on, she always went towards her faith and her friends, her family, and the Lord. And it was just those times, those moments was when you really, really recognized her faith.
That's well spoken, Naya, and I actually have a little bit of a different answer. I was quite moved by the faith of the community. I mean, of course, as well as Sarah's and Rose's and Joe's, but in learning about this hidden history, we found out that there were all these self-sustaining Black cities. It wasn't just Greenwood that we know about, Black Wall Street. There were 50 plus of these self-sustaining Black communities that had been established in that much time, from 1865, 1867, right? So being able to see that and learning that these communities were building, they were entrepreneurial, they had initiative, they were enterprising people, and were able to establish themselves really quickly, built on faith. Apparently the first thing they would build in these towns was the church, and then they would build the rest of the city around it. And so faith was just so integral to our lives. And with Sarah first and foremost, with Joe and Rose, and then outward, even to the surrounding community of Taft, and the others as well. I was blown away by that. I was blown away by that, and inspired by that.
Yeah, the power of community is really significant in the story, and really stayed with me as we learned about it. Being able to be out there in Oklahoma, to be able to go and drive down to Taft, to see even the cemetery where a lot of the family members and descendants are buried, and to meet the living relatives of some of these families that aren't mentioned in the film per se, but were certainly there. It touches you more deeply, because it's like, man, this is real. And I remember I always say this part before we knew anything about Sarah Rector, and her story. We were talking about is like, is there such thing as like old black money? Like, what does that mean? Like, I don't know, the 70s? I don't know. You know, like when is it, or does it go back further? And so coming into contact with Sarah's story is like blew my mind, because it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What is this? You know, between the Dawes Act and seeing the settlements, these inheritances, and the oil boom, like this is a part of history it's not taught in school. You know, not just Sarah, just really this time period, right? I was like, all I knew about the early 1900s was, I don't know, the Titanic sinking.
I know,
you
it's
know?
ridiculous.
And so to learn about this and realize, like, you know, Sarah's story, while it's special and unique, it's not the only one. And there's a lot to learn in this pocket of history here, with a lot of black families and the 52 towns that you talked about, and how they were, you know, what they tried to do as a community and come together because you had to. But
with
there was
faith at the center.
Right. Right. It's like that's the only real foundation that can last. But obviously it was also attacked, as it usually is. But it is really powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How's it going all? Derek Dunn, Reviews and Done. First of all, Naya, phenomenal job.
Thank you.
But my question was for the Greens. So there's a scene in the third act where the henchmen show up and your characters are, you know, they're strapped up. Kenric, you grab the shotgun. Sonequa, you grab the knife. Did you guys do that scene in one take, or did you kind of play around with it to get it just right?
Ooh, that's a good question. That was one of the only moments that we had without Naya. And Adion, we had sent them off, of course. I feel like we did strategize that scene with Cyrus Narasta, our director and also co-writer. He co-wrote with his wife Betsy. He was super collaborative. And we got into many huddles. And so we talked this through. What do we feel like is authentic for this? And we kind of like choreographed it together. And I think once we did that, once we had a few rehearsals just to like get it right. And you know, we wanted to make sure we showed the truth of Joe being the leader. You know, he was the leader of his home. That you know, that biblical husband in so many ways. We wanted to make sure we showed that. But I think we actually only did like maybe two or three takes.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few. I mean, sometimes you got to do multiple takes because of the technical side, right? The camera movement and figuring out where you're going. Because we were doing a lot of things on the fly. You know, I think something that, I don't know how well known this is. I'm not even sure if I should share it, but our DP on the movie, he came in last minute because there was a last minute change because the original guy, he fell ill suddenly. And so the whole production was at a scramble because the DP is a very important piece to the making of the movie.
Director of photography.
Yeah, and so Johnny Durango came in and he and Cyrus worked together on the fly. Johnny, he got the call. He was down there the next day and he had about 2 days before we were about to go with this thing. So every day was wildly collaborative, like she said. And, you know, it really was, you know, speaking of community, like our little community that helped bring this story to life, really had to come together and create without much planning or preparation ahead of time because everything changed. And so in that scene, that was one of those that was very fluid and kind of, you know, we're kind of building as we go and figuring out like, all right, where does the camera need to go? Where are the guys outside that's threatening? And how, you know, what is Rose doing? Like, is she just standing there? Or like she's a strong woman, but she's not necessarily adept at, you know, fighting and battle in that way. So how do we encapsulate all of that? So yeah, I don't think it was one take, but you know, there was a lot of things, a lot of pieces, moving parts in that.
Thank you.
Hi, Nancy Green with an E. And first of all, I wanted to say that this movie is really beautiful, and so is the history behind it, I believe. And it's been lovely, like listening to you talk about your faith. And so, what I really wanted to know was for preparing for the roles in this movie, can you take us through some of the steps and also like what you may have done on set to kind of keep the references together and keep your preparation up?
I think that it was a lot of research. What also helped was the book Searching for Sarah Rector. Reading that and learning history behind how Sarah Rector's family and all the generations before Sarah Rector's family came to be, including of Tears. It was very informing, but also very emotional because Black people at that time weren't respected or supported the way they should have been. But it also helped me understand why Sarah Rector was so, I wouldn't say tough, but like, I can't seem to find the words, but why she would stand up for what she believed in, what she believed was right. And on set for preparing for Sarah Rector, it was mostly talking with the other actors like Zachary Levi, Miss Sonequa, and Mr. Kenric, and getting to know them, yes, on a character role level, but also as a person just on set. The basic questions that laid that very strong primary foundation, so we could build in, so we wouldn't feel awkward when we were on set and we were talking to each other. Just that building that level of understanding, I think was really helpful. So I could understand Sarah Rector's character and also the community's character, the different people's characters and how they respond to different situations really made it easier for me to understand what Sarah Rector was going through at the time and who were the people she trusts and who were the people she didn't trust, or some people she was still questioning about.
It was a lot of, Google. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot of like, what is this? What had happened? Who are these people? And we would dig into the, kind of bowels of the internet, and 'cause there's a lot of wrong information, there's a lot of misinformation about Sarah Rector out there. A lot of it we found out about from the family. And we're so grateful they were with us in Kansas City, and we got to spend time with her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren. It was amazing. And they love the film, and that's like one of the biggest things that matters, right? But we weren't able to really have a lot of conversations with them because we were kind of in that like place where you're sworn to secrecy, where you can't talk about what you're doing. So we had to just kind of lean on our own research. And so we would combine, we would go off and we would find what we could, and then we would come back together and put them together. We did a lot of like general research of the time. Everybody, needs to know about how Oklahoma came to be. You learn so much about just that. So learning about that, we literally just had to piece it together like a puzzle, right? And then, even trying to get the accents right, it's not quite the Deep South, but it's not quite, and then the time period. Music was a big one.
Yeah, music, that was hard to find.
It was hard to find
Everything in that time period is like hard to find.
Yeah.
Honestly, the best example I've heard of that came afterward, or really earlier this week when we met the family, had a screening in Kansas City, and a couple of the I think the grandchildren, they come up to me and they said, "Hey, so we don't have a picture of our grandfather, Joe. Like it doesn't happen because he passed away. Joe ended up passing away, I think around 40. It's a little bit of mystery around his death, but it was on a train coming back through Texas, and he passed away, unfortunately. But they were like, we don't have any images of him. So can we take a picture of you and let that kind of stand in its place," which was tremendously humbling, but also just speaks to how things just weren't documented. The stuff's just not available. So when we're preparing for this, we have to just say like, is this even factual? Like, can we rely upon this? But then at the same time, you know, you want to find what you can, but since it's so piecemeal, we have to take artistic liberty and kind of connect the dots with as much integrity as we can. But something like the accent or the music, you know, you can't just go on Apple Music and be like,
No.
give me that early 1900s vibe.
Yeah,
You know, it's like
no.
it's like, what do you want? You want, I don't know,
Yeah,
jazz
it
or
didn't
you know.
exist.
So it's it was a fun, but it made it fun to explore it and kind of mine the information and then take in, you know, take in what we could and kind of.
We felt a bit like detectives or investigative
Right.
journalists, you know, and we also, of course, had to employ the wisdom of the Lord and just be like, all right, Lord, you know, we've done what we can. You're gonna have to lead us, you know, the rest of the way.
Right.
Nice. Thank you so much. And congratulations on this project. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, cousin Nancy.
I was
We
just
see
gonna-
that. You see that green? And
Yeah, if you didn't have that E on the end.
That's right.
Hi, Dana Abercrombie, The Coalition. What I love about this movie is the dynamic of trust within each other. In terms of the children are not put in a child's place, everyone is viewed as equal. And so, can you talk about kind of the psychology of raising, of within the movie, of having a child who you understand and trust will lead the family without saying, oh, she doesn't know this much because she's that age. And for Naya, what was it like to be instilled with that trust? Was it a sense of, was it a little bit of a burden, or was it more of a confidence builder?
I think that it was a little bit of both, because the burden was when I went to find help, I was treated like a child, and I would go home because it wasn't my place. But it was also a confidence builder, because that just made me, Sarah Rector, want to show them that I am not just a child, and you still have to listen to me, and I still deserve a certain amount of respect that you're not instilling to me. So it was a bit scary, because I was being rejected also by my own kin. And there were times in the movie where it was hard to go on, but I still had to, because I knew what I was doing was right. And even though people didn't believe me, and there was little chance that I would even survive, even if there was some chance that something could have happened, I still went on. Not ignoring the problem, just understanding it, but still moving forward.
It's it was really you know, reading the script and then the life that Naya brought to Sarah and her intelligence and her ability to navigate, you know, this dangerous world, you know, very, very dangerous for us. And that was something that was on my mind as we were making the movie and thinking about like, wow, like just out of necessity, like our daughter is just out there in the fields and in the towns among the white folks and doing whatever. And we don't know where she is, when she's coming back, if she's coming back, but that's just the way life was because things had to go on. But there was also this, I think the trust part was easy because of how intelligent and capable she was. You know, I know in the film I was like, she can read, she's good with numbers too. Like she could do things that I definitely can't do as Joe. And so it's like there is a trust and a dependence on each other as a family that was really beautiful and really striking to me in there, where it's like, all right, I can do my part as the husband and she could do her part as Rose, but Sarah and Junior, like everybody has a role to play. We're not just here to provide and you guys just sit still and be quiet. It's like, no, you got to go and learn and read and write and do these things for the family, like help push us forward, you know, bring us to the next level.
Yeah, we all got to carry the weight. It was also, you know, if we're going to be truthful, as directors were truthful in our convictions, then part of what we believe teaches us that wisdom is ageless. And as soon as it's clear that she believes she has heard from the Lord, well, then we have to take that seriously. We have to listen. We have to obey. And so there was also that as well. That spiritual intelligence, that spiritual maturity, that the rectors, were so proud of in her, and then wanted to support as well, because it's what you want your child to do, is to take it and run with it. And so, as difficult as it was, I think, Sarah exhibited efficiency and competency in many ways, that they had to listen. They had to let it guide them.
Thank you, everyone. Excellent job. And thank you for giving us this history that's not taught to us.
Oh, yeah, our pleasure.
Listen.
Quick question just for the Greens. Nick Hamilton, NightcastMedia.com. Wanted to ask both of you, what did you learn from the parents who had to yield to Sarah's anointing, because she was such an anointed child, to be able to realize the voice of God and be able to execute what she was being kind of instructed to do and led to do, I should say, for the sake of the family?
Well, I think the way you phrased it, yielding. We have two children of our own, a boy and a girl, 10 and 5, and watching who they are, who God made them, is already in there, right? And we are to steward them. But I think there's this idea around parenting that is like, you can kind of make your kid whoever you want them to be, right? You mold and shape them and present them to the world. And it's like, that's not how it works. And that's certainly not how the rectors approached it with Sarah or their other children. And so it's like, having the eyes to see the beauty and the uniqueness in each of your children, and help to foster that, whatever that might be, is something that I definitely learned. And I think we both did, from the rectors, and push that more into our own lives, because we know, especially in our community, sometimes it could be a little like,
only speak when you're spoken to.
Exactly. Why are you talking?
Exactly.
Nobody wants to hear your opinion or this thing. And it's like, now respect, but they need to learn respect as well. But it's like, there is value in children and their perspective, their ways of thinking. Sometimes the simplicity of the way a child thinks is important. Like the Bible talks about childlike faith.
And out of the mouths of babes. Yeah, it also takes humility. I learned that as well. It takes humility to do that. Like I was saying a moment before, wisdom is ageless in a way, right? It can come through anyone. And, we also learn from the word that you are not to let anybody treat you a certain type of way just because you're young. And so but it takes humility to do that, especially as a parent, and especially in that time that was so hostile. It takes humility to yield, as you were saying, to the voice of the Lord, especially when it's coming through your child. But again, because of her capability, because of her competency, because of she was a genius in a lot of ways, and had such a spiritual depth and understanding, that the power of it, you know what I mean? The power of the word in her was undeniable. And again, Naya's own power and brilliance, shines through. And so it made it very easy for us to slip into this life.
Very well said. And Naya, as Sarah, you are a boss. I love seeing that.
Thank you.
Hi, Jill Monroe again. So, Sarah's story is a through line to our fight for reparations today and land rights. What can we take today currently from Sarah's story and apply to all of these questions that we're sort of still grappling with almost 100 years later? Maybe even be 100 years.
I think we can take from the story that even when it's hard, just have someone to lean on, to have faith in, either your parents or friends. I think it's just really important just to have someone support you all the way through. And even when Sarah Rector thought it was hard, she always kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And some of my love for acting always shines through. Because even if there's a role, even if there's a role that I'm not sure, I'm not sure about, I still remember that I can talk to my friends and family. Just like the other role that I've been in now, which is a film called Angie. And when I was talking to my mom and the director about this film, it goes over some really hard topics. And just for me to be able to take time to understand, to read the script, I figured out that this is something I'd like to do. And yeah, I want people to take away from this film that they can do anything that they want to do if you put your heart and mind to it.
That's beautifully said, Naya. I think people should study how Oklahoma came to be.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think that there is a ton of history right there that we all need to know. We need to know what really happened in the Trail of Tears. We need to understand how the native tribes that were pushed out, how they actually got set up, how they also owned slaves. They had enslaved Africans. I think we need to understand that there was old Black money and how it was taken, how it was systematically stripped from us. I think that even just understanding what actually happened is huge. And of course, that's not just relegated to Oklahoma. That's everywhere. But I think, getting into the rabbit holes, I think is really helpful because of course, as we know, if you know what came before, you can stop it from happening again. You can therefore then be empowered, and understand that we do have a lineage and a heritage that still so many of us don't even know about.
Yeah, and I would add to that like you said, it reminds me of the scriptures, like what was written aforetime is for our learning. And the Black history in America is a tough one, a gritty one, a rough one. The deeper we get into it, it seemingly never ends. How the kind of the horror and the all of those things down there that are uncomfortable, that some people don't want to acknowledge, but is there. But I think as we understand stories like Sarah and the powers that be that would attack that, and obviously as Black communities come together, we know where they get attacked and they get destroyed in a lot of cases, and there's a lot of fallout from that. And we certainly need to learn about that and understand it. But I think also as we learn about and understand it, we have to look within ourselves, within the faith that I believe we all should possess, but I know we all don't. We all see those things differently, but we have to then move forward.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we get, because of how visceral and impactful our history is in the country, sometimes we get stuck there, and we feel, and it's almost like a trap or a snare. And so I think that as we learn and as we get more understanding about what happened beforehand, it's for our learning, so that we know what might be possible, ahead of time. One, that it's like, well, if they can, if people like the Rectors can ascend to generational wealth, in their time, then any of us alive today can do it without the aid of, someone outside of us and the Lord.
That's
It's I think that's an important component to add on top of that.
Well said. That part.
I think that, like Mr. Kenric was saying, divide and conquer. At that time, since Black communities or a lot of Black communities were popping up. Also, some people were separating the people, so it would be easier to destroy communities. So as new communities are rising, many other communities were falling just as quickly, because when people are together, they're stronger. There's strength in numbers. But once you're separating the people, making one family distrust another family, making that family distrust another family, that connection starts to fall apart, and it's easier to weaken the structure. And faith was basically that glue that held them together. So that's also why, before I started researching, I questioned why the churches were built first. And now I understand why. Because if all the people in that town didn't have a place to go, to be together, to strengthen their bond, they knew that their community would soon fall apart. All people in the world, if you're in a community, you need some place or something where you can all connect, where you all have something in common with each other. And that's how that bond begins. How maybe you turn into friends, you turn into best friends, and then you can lean on them whenever you need to.
Thank you for that, Naya. You ready to lead the future generations? Appreciate your answers. Thank you.
I was going Derek Dunham once again. So just another quick question for whoever wants to chime in. So working with Garrett Dillahunt, who plays the antagonist, how did you all create that organic animosity? Did you guys avoid each other on set, or how did that come about?
I think it was also getting to know him. But also there was already in the story, the people that you rely on are the people that you rely on. And even Offset, we did talk and also strategize and also get to know each other on a personal level. But also there was still that distance. Since we weren't connected in the story, since we weren't fully connected in the story, we still had that separation, which also made it more organic when we were bumping heads.
Yeah, I think there was from my end, it's first time working with Garrett, but we're friends with his wife, Michelle Hurd. She's in the Star Trek world with us, and also a Black woman.
Yeah.
And so there was like a trust there already, didn't have two, it's like we'd met before but didn't really know each other, but there was a trust in the material and telling the story. We didn't need, at least he and I mean, everybody works differently and not one way is not better than the other, but there was actually a very like a cordialness off camera and talking. There were points we were talking about Shakespeare and Macbeth and other things outside of the movie we're doing currently, and it was really I enjoy that, because then when the cameras are rolling, it's like, oh, okay, you and I, we can get into the story and kind of think and go through whatever we need to go through. But it's, because of the trust that's present,
yeah,
and understanding who each other really are, I found it like, oh, okay, now I can receive this from you in a more organic way and not think that this is being colored by
yeah,
anything other than the story itself.
That's right. He is also brilliant. Garrett's
he's
brilliant,
amazing.
and we had the joy of working with a lot of brilliant people. All of our cast. Stelio, Mel, Bridget, obviously Zach. And so when you have people that are dedicated to their craft, that are excellent in their craft, that are there for the right reasons, when minds and hearts are aligned, it's you can do anything. And so it was like you said, all we had to do was dive into the imagined story, which is not imagination, but is real. But nevertheless, we had to employ our imagination, and we did it together. and it makes it so much fun.
And it's funny, this material puts you in this weird in this weird position because like she mentioned another actor, Stelio, in the movie. He has a line that he says to me, refers to me as a cagey coon. And that's obviously, I understand the heart through which he was saying it and what that means to me as Joe in the story and everything. But then as Kenric, as the actor telling the story with Stelio, I'm also like the way he did it. I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but I was excited as an artist because I'm like, yeah, like he brought such a life to it, and it's like you felt it, and I'm like, yes, because we need to feel that as an audience. We need to understand like this is hostile territory. Like these people do not value, like they do not value. They will kill them in an instant, whatever it takes for them to get what they want, to try to satisfy their greed. And I'm like, yeah, that needs to be communicated as authentically as possible. So on the one hand, I was like, I never want to be on the receiving end of those words. But then within the context of this story, I'm like, yeah, bring it. Like, give it to me. Because this is what the story needs. We got to show that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Jeree with the TV Cave podcast again. That kind of goes into my question. I was going to ask, with such heavy material and, with Sarah having to be called some nasty words, how did you all protect her being so young? And Naya, how did you feel, or how did you all protect each other? But Kenry, you kind of answered it. You were, you went into the space of like it was yes for the story. But that was my question for you all.
There were 2 scenes in the movie where the first scene was when me and Zachary Levi were riding to the town, and he called it a coon town. And in that moment, it was I was partially angry, not at him, but also at our history, at our story, because Black people were called really horrible things at the time. Mostly because you weren't respected, and they thought of us as less than, not human. And when in those times in the movie, I was angry because this is history. This is our history. And I liked how Sarah Rector told Bert that wasn't okay. And some behavior is automatic for some people because that's how they've been taught or that's what they actually believe. And at that time, I was also another scene where Bert was getting the supplies for the battle scene. And I felt like he showed that he wasn't that type of person. That he showed that behavior isn't automatic for him. He realized what he'd done wrong, and he's trying to right his wrong. And he said that he was sorry, but he didn't say it, he showed it. And that's how you can actually tell that someone actually means they're sorry. Because everyone can say I'm sorry to everything, but that doesn't mean they mean it. And just that action, that taking accountance of responsibility, was also really enlifting for me. Because yes, I think he meant it in the character, but also since he was in it, he was feeling it. I felt like it was coming from his heart, not just it was written in the script.
That's beautiful. We had to talk about it, right? That was a big one. We had to just talk about it. We had to get it out into the light. Like, this is nasty. This feels nasty. And we would come together and we would discuss it. There was the scene in the courthouse. I know that hit a lot of us. It hit all of us. It hit the three of us here. It hit everybody, where we had to see it with our own eyes. Oh, time for us to go to our places for the beginning of the take, but we got to go up there. And I had a whole moment and a little bit of a come apart, because I was like, oh my goodness, we have to go up there. Like, we can't, like, and you know that this happened. You know it intellectually, but when you have to actually bring it to life, you step into it a little bit more. And so it really affected us, and everybody was feeling it. I remember Adion had a moment with it that day, and we all came together and prayed, just because everybody was feeling it. It was heavy, it was visceral, it was nasty. But we really had to come together, which is obviously such a theme, and it's something Naya's been speaking on so beautifully this whole time, is coming together. And like what you said, we have to learn these things, but not to stay there. We have to learn them so that we can be bridge builders, and so that we can be empowered, but be empowered to connect and move forward. And that's how we were able to get through that day, for sure. Is that was that we connected, and we just held hands, and we just gritted our teeth and got through it together. Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Karan again, and I'm really grateful to live in a time where space is actually not the final frontier. And we've seen the Greens in space. We've seen you on the Boston streets, and now we're seeing you in love in person. We don't often see our futures because we're not included in futuristic television. Sonequa, you were very groundbreaking in that, and I have a baby cosmonaut at home. But Naya, I want to ask you, through this role in Sarah's Oil, what do you see for your future? We already know you're an accomplished artist, but what do you see in your future?
I see in my future, I want to be a geologist. I love to study rocks. But also in the future that I see for us people is more Black films, but also regular films that just pop into people's minds, but also more Black roles and people being cast for those roles. And this movie is also, yes, it's history, but it's also, they could have chosen people of a different race to represent the people in this film. And I think we need more inclusion in the field of entertainment, but also in the world in general. How we get jobs, how people are elected for those jobs. I think people should be elected for jobs not on the race of their skin, but on the content of the character. And I think that for us people in general, it's just a very hard world to be living in right now. But I think this movie, and also other movies to come, is just a way for us to feel included in the world. Because we, at this modern day, are very separated. And I think entertainment is a way to just bring people together.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your imagination, and thank you for your boldness. You have a really bright future, and I'm here to see it.
And you know what? I have a quick question for probably the Greens, but Naya, feel free to chime in as well. As we saw with the Apple picture that came out, Flowers of the Killer Moon, and now with this one, where you had so many of these individuals who were in possession of these land tracts that resulted in this tremendous amount of wealth being killed. How in the heck did this girl and this family survive in that that wilderness that they lived in, where it was sort of a lawless space? So, I mean, do you have any insights as to what? I mean, was the real Sarah Rector some gun-touting 10-year-old who really knew how to handle her business? Or, I mean, just any insights would be welcomed.
You know, I spent a lot of time, especially as the father, right, and the protector of the family, and Sarah as a little girl. I thought about that a lot, and even like speaking with we highlighted Cyrus Naraste and his wife Betsy Naraste, who wrote the movie. An Iranian man and a white woman wrote this story. You know, they took it upon themselves, and but at the same time, as a writer director, my expectation coming in was that he's going to be pretty specific and rigid around what he wants, but it was completely opposite of that. He was so collaborative and open, and he really gave us the space to speak to these areas where he's like, look, I'm not going to see it like you would as a black man or as a black woman or whatever. So please, let's work together here so that we can be as truthful to these aspects, so that it can, it can serve the overall story. And when it came to some of the protecting thing, where I remember like a conversation where like, it's like, okay, so Sarah goes out and finds Bert and this Mexican man, and they're just off together doing this thing, and what are we doing at the house? Like what, and it was conversations like those that allowed us to kind of shape and grow things where, to make it make sense, but also like, let's not lose the true danger and violence of this time. Like we're telling a story in a way that's more palatable for a wider audience, but we know that if there's an R-rated version of this story, and to speak to like how did it happen, I think it really only speaks to what we keep coming back to, with the faith and the presence of God in the story, because there is no version of this where people can just, black folks just outsmart the times and and keep it moving. It's like, no, there's spiritual forces behind you called Jesus, who who helped shepherd, because there's a greater purpose than just getting that money, or.
And I to piggyback on that, yeah, I think that you do have to acknowledge that they just had to have been receiving divine protection, right? So many people did die, and Killers of the Flower Moon, thank you for bringing that up, because it was the same time, around the same time, just a few years apart, in the same area, just like just a few miles away, if you will, right? And so they were there was dividing and conquering happening with the tribalism. They were dividing and conquering and killing them, and then they were dividing and conquering the newly freed black population that now had land that had oil on it, and we were never supposed to come into that wealth. They gave us the rocky, barren land when we were free, because they gave the fertile ground to the white settlers that were pushing west. But then our rocky, barren land had oil, and that happened to a lot of the different tribes as well. But it was imperative that you strategize, and imperative that you receive the wisdom and protection of the Lord. And the rectors did eventually have to flee to Kansas City. And that's where their descendants are to this day. It's why we had our world premiere in Kansas City, because they did have to leave, because the threats just became, it just got to be too much. It just got to be too hot. So it's really crazy when you think about it. And there is the mysterious death of Joe Rector. The family to this day, they're just like, we know that something crazy happened. We don't know what it was though. So Joe did, it seems he did succumb to it ultimately. So it was just like you said, a lawless like time of just absolute hostility and danger. And so you just had to band together, as we've been saying, keep your prayers lifted.
Yeah.
I think that I'm gonna piggyback on your piggyback. That at the time when they were dividing and conquering, as you were saying, many people have died, and the reason why they had to move to Kansas City is because the threats were getting too much, is because they were getting threatened to killed, is also because in the movie they trashed their house. They almost barely missed killing their dog. Sometimes I'm just surprised when I watch this movie again and again, how they made it through, how they didn't give up. And it was also because of their community. It was when that Sarah actor and her little brother, when they ran off, when their parents were being threatened. Because when you're living in a home, your parents are the one who love you and protect you and are supposed to shield you. And Joe Rector and Rose Rector risked their lives for their children. Because think about the scenario. There are two men with guns at your house, and you only have one gun and a knife. And when you think about that scenario, it was the strategic element of it, and it was also the community that helped. Because when they went to the other town searching for Sarah Rector while she was in the fields with her brother, the community around them came and protect them. And soon after, their parents came. And it was just I felt it was very amazing, and also I was very curious because even though it was in the script that Joe Rector and Rose Rector came, the odds for them were not in favor at all. And all the windows were closed, the doors were locked, but I still didn't know how they're going to survive. And at the end, the community saved them. Because in the point, if the community wasn't there, Sarah Rector wouldn't have been alive, and neither would her brother.
Well said, well said. And our co-founder, in fact, is actually a descendant of Sarah Rector. I believe you guys probably met him in Kansas City, where he still lives.
Yes. They had 8 children, and we didn't know we were shook when we met him.
Yeah.
Right. And he's a film critic, so.
Yes. There's so many members of Sarah Rector's family that met on that day, and also including the ones who stood at the premiere at Kansas City. And even though I knew they were going to end up, I didn't know how many there were going to be. Just to be astonished of how big Sarah Rector's family was. Also, just like descendants and ancestors, and it's just amazing. My mind was blown away about how many people are still alive to this day, and their family is still continuing to grow.
Well, Kenric, Sonequa, and Naya, thank you so much for your time today. On behalf of the world's largest group of Black film and TV critics, we hope you enjoy this episode of AAFCA Roundtables. Have a great day.
Thank you for having us and for everything you do.
Absolutely, absolutely. You guys were amazing.
Yes.